Monday, October 21st, 2024, meeting of the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mrs. Denny?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. McCray? Mr. McCree?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Please stand for the posting of the colors by our JROTC. Thank you, as always, to our JROTC, and thank you for your patience in our slightly late start this evening, as our executive session ran over a little bit. This evening, our first piece for communication, I'm going to hand off to Dr. Dan Weber, the principal high school principal.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Students, would you please join me up here? I have the distinct honor of presenting some of our commended and semifinalist students from this past year. As you guys are aware, every year there's the PSATs that across the country, anywhere from like 1.4 to 1.6 million students will take it. Usually the top about 2.5%, top 1% are represented and recognized. The top 2.5% reach commended status, and the top 1% reach semifinalists. This year we had 10 total students, which is the largest since I've been here. It's absolutely phenomenal. 2 of them reaching semifinalist status, and just to give you a perspective, in Berks County there were 3 total, and 2 of them are at Wilson. So pretty spectacular when we have that type of representation. So for our commended students, we have Jenny Shao, Selena Wu, Catherine Spees, Paige Hinkle, Zachary Korjuk, Mayank Nanapali, Nathan Stein, and Lawrence Zen. Our semifinalists are Adi Nayak and Sindura Sarita. So these are 4 of our students that are here. We're going to get pictures tonight, and then we're going to get some throughout the week, but I just wanted to bring special recognition to them. So if you could join me in congratulating them for their outstanding efforts. Go ahead. Go ahead and shake your hands. Yeah, I'll get one of them tonight too. The one thing I will say about all of these students that are recognized is they are outstanding students, work really hard, but they're even better people. So I can't tell you that enough. They're just great kids. So we're very blessed to have them in all aspects of school. So thank you guys much. Appreciate it.
For our next communication piece, I would like to call up Dr. Ganji Kachufo, please.
Good evening. Remind me not to go after our national. It's daunting, but it's also absolutely fantastic that we have so many students that achieve at such high levels. Tonight, myself, Jen Joyner, and Jill Lynch. Jen is our supervisor of professional learning, and Mrs. Lynch is one of our instructional support teachers. She's from Cornwall Terrace. We'll be presenting on STAR 360, our universal screener. So last year, probably around this time, we brought to the board the STAR 360 through Renaissance for grades 1 through 5 as part of our MTSS, our multi-tiered system of support that we were developing, our tier 1, 2, and 3 for students with reading needs, math needs, and then trying to start to backfill for students who have some social emotional learning, some behavioral needs as well. So on the board agenda tonight is an extension of that. So last year we were at grades 1 through 5. This year we're looking to extend it from kindergarten and then add 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to our MTSS system. The reason behind that is twofold. So I want to preface this by saying sometimes the state gives us mandates. Sometimes they tell us that mandates are coming and that we have to be nimble enough to prepare for what those mandates are. The structured literacy pieces of two major components, Act 55, and right now Senate Bill 801. Right now Senate Bill 801 is supposedly on its way to the governor's desk, but we also heard on Friday that there are some more revisions that need to happen before it gets there. But one of the major pieces is a universal screener. So we started down this path last year, and we're going to continue working towards that, moving our system from a 1 through 5 grade level system to a K through 8 system. And this universal screener gives us the opportunity to have another data point to really help focus on meeting the needs of students in reading and math, and then also helping us with some behavioral interventions as well. So again, when we look at this, it's a piece that's coming from the state, so it is kind of lemony. So we're going to try and make some lemonade with it and really focus on using the data to help our teachers and help our students grow. As a side note, I know that PSSAs are not the end-all be-all of everything, but one of the things that has happened over the past few years is we have had a gradual increase in our scores. Now, when we look at PSSA data, we're looking at data that, in my mind and our team's mind, is dead data because it happens in April and May, and we don't get the results back till probably July, and we unpack it in September and October. So this data point, one of the benefits of this data point is it gives us real-time data that we can use moving forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Joyner and Ms. Lynch to kind of walk us through some of the ways that we're using this and the why behind some pieces to go a little bit deeper.
Good evening. We are going to show you a little bit about STAR 360, that when, as Ganji said, we were using it last year. We started using it in January of last year because we had to receive some training prior to that. So we gave 2 administrations last year. So we're going to show you what it is and then how we are using it with our teacher teams and how it's impacting students this year. So then we'll also show you some sample reports that you can get from STAR 360 and then where we're going to go with it this year.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jill. I'm the IST at Cornwall Terrace. So what is Renaissance STAR 360? So this is a platform that allows us to screen but also use as progress monitoring. And so what that does for us as teachers or people like me who support the classroom teachers, that helps us to identify areas of need, that helps us to drive our instruction, it helps us to look for the places and the areas where our students might need a little bit more support. and it gives that data to us in real time. So we're able to provide this tool. Again, it's just one piece of the puzzle. It's one data point where our students can get onto their Chromebooks, and it's 30 minutes or less. It's a very easy, user-friendly platform that even our younger learners, our first graders, are getting onto the platform without problems, and it's giving our teachers immediate feedback and immediate information to help us tailor our instruction and to help us find those areas of need that then we can dive into a little bit further. The screener itself is also adaptive, so what that means is our students are answering those questions, whether it's reading or math, and then based on how they answer the question, the tool changes the questioning. So it's starting all of our students off at their grade level, and then based on how they answer the question, it's adapting those questions to really give us a good view of what our students have mastered and where are those areas for growth. So how we're using that is we are using that to track their growth. We started this last year in elementary, and we gave it in January and then again in May. And then we gave it again at the beginning of this year. So our students have now done this a few times, and our teachers are becoming more familiar with it as well, with that real-time data. And we're using that to give all of our students a baseline. At the beginning of the year, now all of our students from grades 1 through 5 have taken this screener, and it just gives us that great entry point for where our students starting. And again, this is just one piece of data, so paired with the other things that we're using, it's great information for us as teachers and those of us who support classroom teachers to then dive into those areas where we might need to differentiate. Maybe we're pulling small groups based on the data and based on the skill deficits that we're seeing. But for someone like me in the role of IST, where I'm running data meetings and PLCs for our teachers, that helps us to look at not only classroom data, but grade level data. So we can sit as a grade level and say, wow, this is an area of strength, or this is an area where we might need to dig a little bit deeper and really now focus on that tier 1 instruction to help our teachers and support our teachers with their instructional strategies to benefit all of our learners. We're also using this for accountability. We are starting the year with all of our students taking this screener and having that entry point, so now we can look to see where are they now and where do we need to go. And that helps us to really gather a lot of information together with the other assessments and things that we're using on a daily basis to have a better picture of the whole child and really tailor our instruction to meet those needs.
So this is an example of one of the reports that we have used with teachers, and it's a student mastery dashboard report. And this allows us to look at the standards that each of the grade levels are required to incorporate into their instruction. So this is an example of a 5th grade at a school level. And so what you can see here are across on the right, the percentages within each standard area. And as Jill talked about, we use this to say, okay, for this particular standard, our students are sitting at 62%. We like that to be around 80%. This is a beginning of the year assessment. And again, to Jill's point, it is one piece of data. So it allows us to ask questions. We may have other data that suggest that this is stronger for our students. But we do use this as part of the data that we look at. The one thing that you don't see on this particular report, but in the platform it allows us to do this, is to predict if we put in research-based instruction, where does the data suggest we'll be at the end of the year? So there's a little toggle there. And so again, if we're closer to the 80%, we know that with good instruction, our kids are going to meet that standard. The other piece that this allows us to do is where the triangles are, the side triangles, the arrows, that allows us to select specific students. So if we click on that, you can see how each specific student did. So there might be some students who really mastered this. And as we go forth with our instruction, we're not going to have to spend too much time with this standard with this particular child because we know that they've already mastered. So that differentiation piece is huge with this report. It allows us to plan a lot better. The other report that we look at, again, from a grade level perspective, this is an example of a 5th grade report from one school, but it allows us to see how many students are at benchmark, They call it on watch, intervention, and urgent intervention. Again, knowing that this is one piece of data, we'll look at those names and compare it with the other data that we have. But it allows us to see if we're getting closer to that 80% that we're looking for students to be at or above the benchmark. So how did we get here? As Ganji talked about, we started this process last year at the beginning of the year, and a committee was developed of people from the teaching and learning department. We had some teachers on there to really review some universal screeners. So we brought in some companies. They showed us their tools, reading and math, and Renaissance actually has a social emotional screener as well. But based on these state requirements, we were seeing what's out there. And there's a bunch of things that are out there, and everybody offers something. But we really wanted to think of our own district initiatives too, and how this could support all of our learners. That was very big. We wanted to make sure that, one, it was timely, so our kids weren't spending a lot of time taking this tool, but we can use it to help all of our students. And then, so what they did was they gave us some demo accounts after they shared the information with us. We were looking at the ease of use, and then we considered, after much consideration, we felt STAR was the best for our learners in the district. So as we already shared last year, in grades 1 through 5, at the end of January and at the end of the year, we administered the early literacy screener, reading and math, to our students in grades 1 through 5. Early literacy really is just for first grade. And then this year, what we'd like to do is we'd like to add in kindergarten, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Kindergarten, 6th, 7th, and 8th would be just giving winter and spring. Our 1st through 5th grade have already administered a screener in the fall. And as Jill said, it's very timely, and we get that data right away. The other piece that Renaissance has is something called SABRS, the Social, Academic, Emotional, and Behavior Rating Scale, another timely scale that we can use to help us inform how we're helping to support kids. So we piloted it last year just with an extremely small amount of students with one of our schools that's a little bit further along at the elementary level with their PBIS to see how does it match to the data. And they're actually administering that again. So we'd like to, if that goes well this fall, we'd like to administer that in January and at the end of the year. And then looking forward to next year, K to 8 would be having the universal screener 3 times a year. Do you have any questions?
So I have a quick question. So you said that it kind of is going to be folded in with some of our initiatives that are already in place. So is this in addition to or replacing CDTs at the middle level?
No, not at the middle level, no.
So they'll still have CDTs and they'll have this
Correct.
as well?
Yeah, and
Okay.
this is so, I mean, it's, as Jill said, it's 30 minutes, but it really doesn't take all students 30 minutes. Once the program really figures out, like feels that it's got enough data to figure out where the student is, it kind of stops them, but it's not longer than 30 minutes.
Okay, because I know that it sounds similar to the CDT, there's all the acronyms. The diagnostic test. And that, I believe, is probably structured differently, though. Like, they could go on forever if they
Yes.
keep getting the answers right. So that's
Yeah.
not the situation for this?
No.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
Nope.
And also the state is, since I think some of us are aware that the state is now moving to PSSAs being full online next year, the 25-26 school year, CDTs, and then also a system called Firefly. They're piloting a system called Firefly that will align directly to PSSAs, and we want to see how that goes. We did not sign up to pilot that this year just because we wanted to see where that goes. Sometimes it's better to be the first follower than the first in line. So that usually when the state rolls stuff like that out, there are some bugs, and we would rather somebody else deal with the bugs, and we continue down our path. Because with the structured literacy pieces that the Senate Bill 801 that will most likely get through, this is a mandate moving forward. There's pieces of Act 55 that say that a universal screener does need to be in place as part of structured literacy just for the reading piece, but most companies are not selling just the reading piece, they're selling the whole suite.
Do you want me to go now or when we vote?
I had a question.
You can go first.
You want me to?
No, go for You go first.
I just had a question about, you said they're measured 3 times a year, correct? Are they measured all around the same time? Is there,
There's a screening window each time
Okay.
that they all test around the same time.
okay. And then my other thing is, I went to look around the SB 801, regarding some of the amendments, and it did read as though part of the amendment would be that the mandate would go away for Pennsylvania, but I'm not sure how that will fly, once it gets voted on. But I realize this is a mandate, and and thank you very much for all your consideration and for your explanation of how you arrived at selecting the STAR 360. My only concern is that it is, from what I understand, STAR 360 is a norm-referenced assessment tool. So for some of our students who tend to be on the margins of the standard, they're not necessarily going to fit a lot of that because they're not the norm necessarily. So I'm always leery of how norm-reference types of assessment tools are used in schools. I don't know if you want to go into any.
We use it as one piece of
Right.
data. So as Jill was talking with our data meetings, our data protocol really, we look at this, but then we say, how does this match the other data that we have? And if it's not matching, we're not going to, put some instruction in place that may
Right.
not be matching other data. So again, it's just one data point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll save comments to the item on the agenda, but any questions for the team before we get into that spot? Mrs. Denny?
Dr. Kuchufa, I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but, and thank you for this presentation. This was very helpful. You had mentioned that the state legislation is providing some lemons that we're going to try to make into lemonade. I am wondering, because I imagine there's quite a bit of cost along with this, if the lemons come with any financial assistance from the state to help us do this, and if so, what it is.
Yes and no. I do think all of you are familiar with Governor Shapiro's new budget for education and how there was an influx of money. Well, with that money, there is the opportunity to use it for some of these pieces, and that's one of the things that we will be doing moving forward. They piggybacked it on another state grant, the Ready to Learn grant, and I believe $1.9 million of money was filtered into the district, and a lot of it comes down to the fair funding piece. Districts have a choice to use that money where they see fit and what's going to be we are the stewards of the money to make sure that we're doing what we need to do for the district. So yes and no. We don't know if that's one-time money or if it's going to continue to come. The rumor is it's going to continue to be there. This is part of that is no matter what, we're going to, the way it's looking is we are going to have to do this, continuing this year, next year, and the year after.
So would it be fair to say it's not an unfunded mandate, but it's a partially funded mandate, and we don't know where we're going to be going from here after this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the one thing I do want to focus on is since it is part of the MTSS system moving forward, and we are taking into account our hard data points and our anecdotal data points, we have seen a lot of value in it as well, matching what our state mandated testing is, the STAR, and things that our teachers are seeing in the classroom. So we are seeing that triangulation of data happen, and all of our data points are leading to the same thing, but there are some cases where we get false positives all the time, and it just gives us an opportunity to really triangulate that data and make sure that we're doing what's right for every single kid educationally.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, moving through the agenda, Mr. Maravich, do you have any announcements? Okay. I do not believe that we have any public participation on agenda items, and the board did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss real estate. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on October 7th, 2024.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's reports. As Mr. McCray is not here, Mr. McCree, do you want to take that, or should I just read through it? Okay. All right. So our treasurer's report, looking for a motion to approve the treasurer's report, inclusive of the treasury report, investment report, general and capital funds finance reports as presented. Looking for a motion for 3.1.
So moved.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Okay, on to payment of bills. Looking for a motion to approve payment of bills for general fund, $8,585,167.70. From capital reserve, $179,178.42. And from the 2021C construction fund, $1,238,768.81. Looking for a motion for 4.1. Mr. McCree, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Looking for motion for the financial reports for the month of September 2024 from the cafeteria, childcare, and activity accounts from Southern Middle School, Wilson West Middle School, and the senior high. Looking for motion for 5.1.
So moved.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, President Cocker. Tonight I present all items inclusive of the superintendent's report. A couple items to highlight tonight. Again, seems to be a trend here. We have some retirees at the end of the school year. Tonight, Denise, Karen, and Kim, all from Shiloh Hills Elementary School, will be retiring at the end of the school year. Total combined service of 96 years. Again, just an unbelievable impact that they've had together, impacting children all throughout the school district. Just again to highlight our appreciation to all of our professional staff members who continue to give us ample time. While we are only nearing the end of October, we are starting to gear up, believe it or not, for the professional hiring season. Last year we started that in December, and we are actually meeting next week to finalize our plans to begin that process. So big thanks to everyone who's choosing to go well beyond, or well before rather, the actual deadline that's mandated on a professional staff side. Also have some resignations. Again, thank you to all these folks who served in a variety of different capacities in our school district. Ms. Haight for child rearing leave, congratulations to her and best wishes, and all other items included below.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve Superintendent's Report 6.1 through 6.7 as presented. Dr. Kennedy, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Dr. Kennedy.
I just want to say that I have reached the point in my career that now the cool young teachers, when I started, are now retiring, so I'm not sure what that says about me. But, it's not, Shiloh Hills is going to take a huge hit, and the ladies deserve it, though, so congratulations to them.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Mr. Schneider?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that. All three of my children went through Shiloh, and there's some big shoes that are going to need to be filled, but I wish them the best in their retirement.
Thank you. Mrs. Denny?
I graduated with both Denise and Kim. So they were Bulldogs. They were very active Bulldogs when they were here. Great people. They pretty much came to Wilson right after graduating from college. And so they've been here. Their children went through Wilson. So it's a little shocking to me that my contemporaries are retiring already, but I wish them both the best of luck. And I just want to echo that it's a real loss for Shiloh Hills.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mrs. Denny. Any other discussion for superintendent's report? Okay. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Up next, 7.1, request a motion to approve the following updated field trip dates for both the high school baseball team as well as the Jamaica trip, just a change in dates to both trips. So looking for a motion for 7.1. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr.
Schneider.
McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent items, 8.1, looking for a motion to accept with gratitude the following donations from Redner's Markets, 300 donuts and cases of water for the class of 2025 senior sunrise event. Looking for a motion for 8.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Oh, Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, for those of in the community that don't know what the senior sunrise event is, I don't know if this is it's not part of your report. Okay. It's a tradition that was only started a few years ago, that the first, is it the first week or first day? First week.
It just happened last week.
So in the beginning of the school year, all the seniors gather, well, as many as show up, but the seniors gather on the football field at sunrise, and then at the end of the school year, they gather for sunset. So I don't even have a senior, and it's emotional, so I can't even imagine. But thank you to Redner's for donating donuts and water to this amazing event. I think it's just really symbolic, and it's just a really nice touch that they get to be together for, the final year. So thank you to Redner's. Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to Human Resources. 9.1, request to approve the updated job descriptions for custodian, second shift lead as attached. Looking for a motion for 9.1.
Hart, so moved.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
On to Student Services, 10.1, request a motion to approve the Betterview Counseling and Trauma Recovery Contract to provide group therapy services as presented. Services begin October 21st, 2024, and end June 30th, 2025. Looking for a motion for 10.1. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
It's a tie. Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, 11.1, request approval for CM3 to install the ductwork installation on one air handling unit servicing the high school gymnasium using the CoStars program. 11.2, request approval for CM3 to replace 2 existing speakers and install 4 new Telecore speakers as part of the telecom intercom system at the lower house using the CoStars program. 11.3, request approval for Crabtree, Rohrbach and Associates to continue to the construction documentation phase of architectural services for the comprehensive additions and renovations of Southern Middle School not to exceed $641,298. And 11.4, request approval of G802 for fire protection design consultant fees. Looking for a motion to approve operation items 11.1 through 11.4.
So moved. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion?
I just want to make a couple of comments. These topics did come up in our last operations facility meeting on Monday. With regard to the ductwork in the gym, there was a safety issue that's identified that it was leaking. One of the legs was or still is leaking on the gym floor due to condensation during events in the summertime. So that's being addressed, which is a good thing. And then likewise, with regard to, and you guys have done a great job putting this in the public content, but for those listening, for the intercom system at one of the last fire drills, there were some identified gaps with the system and the speakers that need to be addressed going forward. So that was also talked about and for the board for approval for today. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you for the background information, Mr. Case. Any other discussion for operations items? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, 12.1, in accordance with Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 54, request approval to commit $1 million in the general fund for enrollment expansion, to commit $1 million in the general fund for new and replacement equipment purchases, and to transfer the remaining excess of $1,859,858.35 from fiscal year 2023-24 general fund revenues over expenditures to the capital reserve fund as of June 30th, 2024. 12.2, request approval of the accelerated budget opt-out resolution for fiscal year 2025-26 as presented. 12.3, motion to approve the adoption of the resolution for the issuance of the school district's general obligation bonds, series of 2024, in a maximum aggregated amount not to exceed $17,500,000 as presented. 12.4, request permission to create an escape room club and establish a student activity account in the high school student activities fund. 12.5, request permission to establish a student activity fund account for the high school Reading Olympics Club in the high school student activity fund. And 12.6, request approval of the budget transfers dated July 1st, 2024 through October 16th, 2024 as attached. Looking for a motion to approve finance items 12.1 through 12.6.
So moved.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Teaching and Learning, 13.1, request approval of a contract with Workforce and Continuing Education, Reading Area Community College, to facilitate professional development engagement sessions. 13.2, request approval of a professional learning service agreement with Tom Stecker and Associates for professional development. 13.3, request approval of an agreement with Renaissance to provide continuum of learning universal screener tools to Wilson School District effective 11/1/24 through 11/30/25. 13.4, request approval of a partnership with Thrive in providing educational services to relationship education for the 2024-25 school year. 13.5, request approval of the education student affiliation agreement between Alvernia University and the Wilson School District. Looking for a motion to approve curriculum and staff development items 13.1 through 13.5.
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Dr. Kennedy?
Yes. I already warned Dr. Cuchufio, but I will be voting no for this, and it's not because of the other four, it's because of the universal screener that they just talked about. I think our teaching and learning department did an amazing job picking the least rotten egg from the egg container, but it's still a rotten egg. And it's a rotten egg that we are forced to spend a lot of money on that we otherwise would not if the state was not forcing our hand in doing so. A few months ago, Mrs. Casper and Mrs. Denny and I went to go visit with Senator Schwank and again with Representative Jahani Cepeda-Freites, and we talked about the problems that come with all these mandates, especially the structured literacy mandates, because they fly in the face of what I know is good literacy instruction, and I can't explain why in a 5-minute comment, but what people can understand is that these are unfunded mandates. There's no direct, like, we will give you this much money. They're forcing our hand in almost a bribery sense. And what I think as a school board member upsets me the most is that they are taking our governance out of our hands. They're dictating our curriculum. They're dictating our assessments, and that's not PDE's place to do that, especially when they're not going to give us money. I love that our team is smart enough and wonderful enough to know that this is one tiny piece of information. My favorite story, one of my favorite first grade stories ever, is we gave the Dibbles Ames Web for 2 years. I had two sweetie pie girls in my class that read at an outrageous level, and I think they read it probably at a 4th or 5th grade level. We gave them the F&P, they flew through it, they loved literature, they were reading chapter books, they were on point. And then we gave them the Dibbles, which is the talking version of this click, click, click test. One of the examples is, so we would have these data meetings, and we would see which one of our first graders are in need of remediation. And up on the top of the board in red lettering are their names. And I'm like, what is going on? Well, here's what happened. One of the tests that they give is a nonsense word test. And while they were taking the nonsense word test with Mrs. Soltis, they were going, oh no, Mrs. Kennedy says we have to make our words make sense. And you know what? I spent 6 months telling them not to make words and to make sure their words, they look right, they sound right, and they make sense. So I'm proud that they flunked that part of that test. And this is very similar. We're going to have kids, I own a clicker. My kid's just going to go click, click, click. He's not reading any of the why are we giving kindergartners, why does PDE think it's a good idea to give kindergartners a test on the computer where we're clicking? Like, it makes absolute no sense to me. And I love that they say it's 30 minutes, and I hope that happens, but I have been in kindergarten classes before, and there's nothing about getting on the computer that takes less than 10 minutes. So I applaud our teaching and learning. They're doing this with the best intentions. They're doing it because they have to be forced, but I don't have to vote for it, and this is a vote based strictly on principle, and that PD is wrong in the direction that they're taking us mandatorily in literacy. And at the university, and I know at other universities, we've all been pushing back on this. It's not their place to tell us as a school board and us as an administration how to teach our kids. Our kids learn very, all of these districts are really different, and each district should be able to choose what matches for the population of its district. So until they, and just so you know, there's a lot of politics and a lot of money. People are making these publishing companies, these testing companies. If you follow the money, it is nauseating how much money they're making off of this. The people that did the PSSAs, the people that do the CDTs, the people that are doing these brand new tests that I'm just hearing about right now. People are making money, taxpayer money, hand over fist at all of these unnecessary, unfunded, mandated assessments. One of the things that I was going to talk about at the when I did my BCIU report is Dr. Hackman compiles a list in booklet form of all of the unfunded mandates that PDE makes us happen. And it is, I was online this meeting, but I will bring next meeting a physical copy to show you how many of our mandates are unfunded. It is unfair. It's not necessary. We already have a universal screener in place that our teachers can give side by side to a student, get to know their students as readers. It's just, we learn more by sitting next to a child and listening to them read than we do looking at data from a student that may or may not be engaged with a computer that they're clicking on. So, in just nothing against teaching and learning, you all, I love you all, and you did a wonderful job. But this is on principle for me, and I would like to thank Senator Schwenk and Representative Cepeda-Freites for listening to us, and we hope that they continue to listen to us and fight for our students and for our districts against these unfunded mandates.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Any other comments for teaching and learning items?
I just had
Casper.
actually, mine was for 13.2, although I agree with Dr. Kennedy and hope that the state will look at this bill and rethink the mandate part. I think I'm a little bit more supportive of using some standardized or norm reference assessment tools as a data point that gets doesn't get weighted very heavily in how we view students' progress. However, I'm really not supportive of the fact that it takes our role as school board members away in terms of being able to handle determining the selection of how we decide to measure our student success. I did have a question about 13.2 with the Tom Stetcher and Associates. Just a question. This is for the teachers to work with the students. So will they be working in these like collaborative groups, the teachers themselves working with other teachers? It just sounds like it's for students, but I wasn't sure who's getting, I guess the teachers are the ones consuming the professional development. But it's for the benefit of the students in terms of being able to have difficult or conversations or being able to overcome adversity. I'm just a little confused as to how this particular Tom Stetcher and Associates is being used.
Dr. Stout, would that be something that you would?
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. This actually is part of our larger plan for professional learning. So this partnership with Stecker and Associates will be part of the sessions that are offered in November and then again in February for teacher professional development. So these particular sessions are in line with our profile of a graduate so that teachers can access their own learning in the space to then turn that around for students as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally makes sense now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stout. Any other comments or questions for teaching and learning items? Mrs. Denny.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to piggyback a little bit on Dr. Kennedy's comments. I don't have the educational expertise that she does, but I have had a chance to learn a lot in this position from our teaching and learning professionals, and I think Wilson does an exceptional job in this area. And my issue with this is that I believe we have an exceptional staff, and I don't think that Harrisburg knows more about what we need to do for Wilson students than Wilson professionals know about what we need to do for Wilson students. And I do agree with Mrs. Casper that data and information is helpful, so the fact that we need to do certain testing is not the issue as long as it's only used as one part of the puzzle. The fact that it's being mandated is the issue. And I would really encourage our taxpayers to take this up with the representatives, though our representatives, I think, did a great job in this area. But this is a case where they're establishing more and more requirements that we have to meet at the expense of our taxpayers, really for very little purpose, because we were already accomplishing this. And one size never fits all. What Wilson needs is going to be different from what Muhlenberg needs, which is going to be different from what Governor Mifflin, and it's going to be different what schools in Harrisburg and Pittsburgh need. So I have a very big issue with the mandated aspect. I will be voting yes, because the reality is, even if we voted no, we still have to do this. And so I will take, you can stand up, Dr. Kennedy, and do it for the team, but I'm going to take a practical approach. But I do not agree with this for a number of reasons. I also wanted to address 13.1. Because I really appreciate that the administration is including the board on this upcoming training on the Hispanic Latino culture. We have, the last data I saw, I think, was 27 or 28% of our students fit into that category, so it is a growing category. I had the opportunity the other week to go into our English learning classroom at the high school, and it was just an amazing experience. It was very different from what I expected, even though I had talked with Dr. Cuchufo about it beforehand. It was very different in a positive way. I got to speak with a number of the students. We have students interning in that classroom who went through it. And so they're able to come and say to these students, hey, I know you're struggling right now, but I've been through it and look at where I am. And they were two seniors looking at going off to become, one's looking at becoming a nurse, and I forget what the other one, but they've done very successfully. So being in that classroom makes me realize the need to really understand the different cultures that are coming into our community. And I think with English learning, she said there were like 12 or 13 different languages of the students that they have, but Spanish is probably the primary language. So anything we as the leaders of this community can do to understand more about the different subparts of our community is a very positive thing. So thank you for arranging that, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, Mrs. Denny. Any other comments? Mr. McCree, no? Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Case?
I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Kennedy, for expressing your thoughts. I 100% agree with you. So I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Stop.
Oh, Mr. Schneider?
Excuse me. Do we want to pull that out so that if people are comfortable voting for the other pieces, they still can?
That's a great point.
I would make a motion to do that.
Okay. Do we have to? Okay.
It can just be done by voice vote.
Okay. Do we have a second to pull the screener out for, hang on one second, 13.3? Dr. Kennedy, thank you.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on, discussion on pulling it out? We already discussed. Okay. So we will be voting on 13.1. Oh, do we need to vote on pulling that separate?
Yeah, you're just all in favor.
Okay, all in favor of pulling 13.3 and voting separately? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. We will be voting on 13.1, 13.2, 13.4, and 13.5. Roll call on those 4 items, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Okay, 13.3, we have had a motion and a second and plenty of discussion. Roll call, please.
Wait, is it the same motion and second?
Oh, I'm sorry, the motion was from Dr. Kennedy.
Is it the same, though, that it's pulled out, or no?
You could, yeah, just have them move in second again.
Okay, motion to approve 13.3.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, second. Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Covering our bases? Okay. Roll call on 13.3, please.
Okay. Mr. Case?
No?
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
No.
Dr. Kennedy?
No.
Mr. McCree?
No.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 5 no, 4 yes. Motion does not carry.
4 and 4.
I mean, 4 and 4, I'm sorry, 4 and 4, sorry. 4 and 4. So what do we do now?
It still doesn't carry.
Motion does not carry.
Can we comment? So what next?
I think our team's going to need a couple of weeks to kind of talk through what's next regarding not only this screener, but also our implementation of MTSS and how we're doing that across the organization. So we're going to need to circle up as a team and come up with a plan B.
Can we include in that discussion revisiting this next board meeting with a letter from the board to PDE discussing our opposition to the mandates and to the upcoming SB 801? Because combining those together.
So just to clarify, we voted for this year to implement the STAR 360, correct? We voted.
It was
So then-
limited to certain classes, though. It wasn't as scaled.
Like, I'm just looking at the dates on there. So yeah, it would be this year.
I just need to comment that I wholeheartedly support the opposition because I would be on that list as well. However, I think we're convoluting MTSS as a system, the multi-tiered system of support, that we're using STAR 364 with the purposes of the Senate Bill 801. So we're kind of mushing them together when really they're two separate entities. One is a state mandate and requirement that we use a universal screener. The other piece is we're using this STAR 360 data process for our MTSS system. And that's something that I wholeheartedly support, and it really helps to establish and dictate differentiated, specific instruction for our kids. So I'm a little nervous about us putting the two pieces together in that they really are very separate entities. And so to say that we can't use a data point from STAR 360 for our multi-tiered system of support, again, makes me nervous, while I support at the same time the opposition to the Senate bill piece. So they're two separate entities, and perhaps that didn't come through in what was presented. So is there anything I can provide clarity on?
I think it came through. It's just that you're saying yes to a tool that's kind of giving an existence to the MTSS, if you will.
Yes. So,
It's like you're justifying the mandates from the state.
well, we're using it for the multi-tiered system of support, which is not a state mandate. That is a separate entity. It's a separate piece of what we do. It has to do with creating a system of support holistically, emphasizing Tier 1 instruction with then intervention supports beyond that. Totally separate entity from the structured literacy mandates.
Perhaps we need to motion for like an amended version of this so that it comes out more clearly the way Dr. Stout is saying?
Well, Dr. Stout, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So the tool, the universal screener itself is what is being mandated.
Correct.
And I think the frustration is that PD is providing a list of approved screeners that they say, okay, now you can pick. If we had the choice as a district to pick any screener we would like to then assist with our MTSS,
Yes,
would we pick a totally different screener?
No, we would select Star 360. We selected
Okay.
Star 360 for the multi-tiered system of support, but then we also realized that we could check the box of compliance for the structured literacy bill, kind of killing two birds with one stone. Because they were telling us that we were mandated to have that universal screener, and we already were selecting that to utilize with the multi-tiered system of supports. So the Senate bill piece is almost like ancillary, different, and separate. So again, I understand why you're saying that we should not support a mandate in that capacity, especially to that expense, but the expense is really to support our multi-tiered system of support that's all about instruction for kids, two totally separate entities.
So I think that may be a piece of it, is that the process, I'm imagining the lengthy process that you went through to evaluate all of the possible screeners and ended up with the 360. That process was something we would have to do anyways, because
Yes.
having a screener in place to support the MTSS is really helpful, and it kind of lends instruction, like we need the screener for that. So you're saying that it also happened to be on their approved list and killed two
They
birds
haven't
with one
formulated the list yet.
Gotcha.
So this Star 360, again, sits in separation of whatever their committee of folks that will be established is going to be asked to generate that list by June 1 in accordance with the most updated and amended part of the bill. So we don't know what that list will be. So we've selected Star 360 separate
yeah.
from that.
Right.
Just knowing that it was going to really facilitate data conversations for our MTSS system, but then hoping it would also check the box for the structured literacy bill.
Right. Yes, Dr. Trickett.
John, Mr. Maravich, could you weigh in here? So we're obviously at a position where the motion did not pass. So what are the options for the board, and how can they direct us to move forward with this particular piece?
I think Dr. Stout just shared that the tool itself is something that the district still wants to use, and it sounds like we intermingled it with 801. And I just text you because I can't tell exactly what's going on with 801, because it looked like it was amended to almost make it optional for this year, but I don't want to say that without, I mean, it's like a Philadelphia Inquirer article. I can't find it in, I'm looking at the PA Senate notes on this right now, but I mean, they can vote separately on just the tool if that was the issue. I don't know where you are in deadlines as to whether that's something they can come up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, if it's permissible, is to allow us to regroup, allow us to have some additional conversations to make sure that we're being clear. I think we could also look into, in year 2 of this implementation, I think some of the concern I'm hearing might even be with kinders. If you could give us 2 weeks to kind of revisit this and re-engage with our solicitor, determine what we could possibly bring back that would allow us to maybe separate and create some type of a declaration while also approving and moving forward a tool. I think we could possibly achieve many of the board members' desires by perhaps getting our heads together.
I think by then, too, we could clarify exactly what this law is saying, because it's not signed yet. I mean, that's my understanding. Looking at it, it's gone up to the governor with the changes I was looking at was talking about the participating districts, which, again, I'm trying to, as I sit here, go through it, but I can't tell you I can give you a definitive answer without looking at exactly what the whole bill is doing. Unfortunately, anybody who follows the school code, they take all this information and plug it back into a statute that was adopted in 1949. So it reads like mud. I mean, it's horrible to read. I mean, at some point, some law school or some college kids are going to get together and rewrite the entire school code. But until then, we will suffer through what is very arcane language.
So again, just for point of clarification for the board, the motion, it stands where it is right now. It's recorded in our minutes. We will go back and we will have a conversation with our department, making sure we have clarity on where the law stands, and then update our board in the next 2 weeks.
And then we can give you I think, from a legal perspective at least, we can help give you if it's a mandate that somehow you need to adopt one of these. And I apologize, but I can't tell from what I'm reading right in front of me quick enough to know that.
I think 2 weeks is plenty of time for us to get the clarity we need.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett.
And just lastly, because it came up with regard to PSSAs and that they're completely online, I mean, if we truly care about testing, it is proven over and over again for math PSSAs to have that on paper where people write things out. If we sit back and allow this stuff to happen from our government and it's just mandated and we're supposed to sit here and take it and vote yes, I call nonsense on that. So very strong and opinionated on this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate Mr. Case, and I will tell you one thing that Dr. Cachufo did not mention as well, that the Commonwealth has decided to move fully online. We are not moving online next year. So, we did a lot of analysis of where other districts are in the county, but most importantly, our teachers advocated with us last year that they believed that that's what we should be doing. So, again, shame on other entities trying to tell our teachers and providing that governance that some of you spoke to earlier. It is our collective responsibility, in my opinion, to make those decisions as the LEA of our school district. So we are not doing that next year. So can we guarantee that moving forward? I'm not so sure. It depends on where we stand as a board at that time and what our thoughts are.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion before we move on to transportation? Right? Yes. Okay. Moving on to transportation. 14.1, request approval of opening purchase orders for the 2025-26 school year to facilitate the procurement of school vehicles to be invoiced and delivered July 1st, 2025 or later, utilizing 2025 capital reserve funds not to exceed $632,448. And 14.2, request approval for the retirement through auction of transportation vehicles units 52 and 54 and 85 and 86. So two 72 passenger buses and 2 minibuses. Looking for a motion to approve transportation items 14.1 and 14.2.
So moved.
Mr. McCree, thank you.
Second. Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion?
I just wanted to add, 14.1 came up in the facilities meeting as well on Monday, and basically this was going to happen anyway. This is just part of our natural refresh of our school bus program. We still are one of 2 districts in Berks County that has our own bus force, if you will, and so this is just normal part of the nature of replacing buses. But the prices are going to be going up, so it is a smart move to at least get the purchase order in. These are long lead time items. This was going to happen next year anyway, or at some point in the near future, but the prices are going up, so we're going to get the purchase order in before the prices go up. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Case. And just to add to that, the vehicles that were sold through auction or previously, I think we regained $60,000 for about 6 vehicles that were sold. So not sold for scraps, I'm guessing. So that is a plus. Any other comments for transportation items? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Food Services, 15.1, request approval to purchase a new walk-in freezer and refrigerator for Cornwall Terrace and Southern Cafeteria from Singer Equipment under CoStars for $89,119.23 using capital reserve. 15.2, request approval to purchase a new steamer for Upper House Cafeteria from Singer Equipment for $23,154.80 using food service funds. 15.3, request approval to purchase a new steamer for the Lower House Cafeteria from Singer for $23,189.45 using food service funds. 15.4, request approval to purchase a new steamer for Whitfield Cafeteria from Singer for $22,516.11 using food service funds. And 15.5, request approval to purchase a new convection oven for Whitfield Cafeteria from Singer for $11,111.70 using for food service funds. Looking for a motion to approve food service items 15.1 through 15.5.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Dr. Kennedy, second. Any discussion? Okay, I would just like to point out that other than the first item, the other equipment is being paid directly from food service funds, which is its own enterprise entity. So the first item is obviously from capital reserve, and the rest are all from their own, the food services reserves. Okay, we have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, we have a first reading of two new policies, 323, tobacco and vaping products, and 351, drug and substance abuse. And then we have a second reading on the following policies, 218, student discipline, 222, tobacco and vaping products, 805.1, relations with law enforcement agencies, and 806, child abuse. So just a reminder that our next meeting, the four policies that I just read will be final votes. Okay. Our enrollment report as of October 18th, 2024 is 6,484 students, which is a decrease of 8 from the previous report on September 13th. On to committee reports. BCTC, Mrs. Casper.
I do not have a report. Our next meeting is this Wednesday.
Thank you. BCIU and curriculum, Dr. Kennedy?
Yes, I don't have a curriculum committee update today, but I do have a BCIU update. There it goes. Like I said, the BCIU did release its book of unfunded mandates, and it's available digital on their website, and it's also paper copies, I believe, are being sent to the districts and are available at the BCIU office. The BCIU's Office of Professional Learning offered professional development services to approximately 975 educators on Monday, October 14th. They are offering the Keeping Kids Safe Human Trafficking Awareness Symposium on tomorrow, or Wednesday, October 23rd, from 8 to 12 in the BCIU main office. Dr. Hackman was the featured speaker at the Berks Business Education Coalition's Business and Education Summit on Tuesday, October 15th, and that was held at the Redner's Event Center. And that's all I have for the BCIU report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Student Services, Mr. McCree.
No report.
Okay, thank you. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman. Thank you. Extracurricular Committee. So both Mrs. Denny and I joined remotely. And my biggest takeaway, and obviously you can add to it if you have something different, but my biggest takeaway are the clubs that we approved this evening. So not necessarily approving the clubs themselves, but approving the accounts for them, which for some of them, especially the Escape Room Club, I'm very excited about. So I it seems like every couple meetings, we're approving more and more clubs. So the process for our school, for the high school for clubs, is that it's student-led. All they have to do is find a teacher who's willing to be their advisor, and they have a club. As Dr. Trickett explained, it could be one student. As long as they have an advisor, they have a club. Obviously, if that doesn't last, like, it probably won't continue. But I took a look on our website, and I think at this point, if everything's updated, we have close to 70 clubs running at the high school, which most of them, the advisors are unpaid. It's just something they do after school with the kids. And it doesn't require the student activity fee to be part of. It's just an after-school club. Obviously, we have co-curriculars, which are a different situation. But I think it just kind of goes to show at our high school how many different opportunities we have for our students, not just in the classroom. And a lot of them, like the Escape Room Club, Reading Olympics, they touch on World of Warcraft is the one that they're starting. It's to kind of catch kids who may not have other interests or extracurricular activities, but they have clubs and they have a group. To go to our profile of a senior or a graduating Bulldog, it's getting them involved, getting them into something that is outside of the classroom. And I just want to congratulate Dr. Weber for that structure in our club system, and for our advisors at the high school, our teachers that continue to support our students in their endeavors for this. And also, Mini-thon is going to have the escape room for this club, and I'm very much looking forward to checking that out. So, very fun. So that's my takeaway from the extracurricular committee. Obviously, our minutes are all online on the district's website, should you want any more minutia and details. Mr. Case, facility.
Thank you. So we did meet, as mentioned, on October 14th. One of the topics was the athletic fields. Mr. Drew Kaufman came on board and gave us a quick update on the baseball and the softball fields. There's 4 fields right now between the freshman baseball, the JV softball, Southern Middle School baseball, and the middle school softball fields that have not been updated in quite a bit. So I wouldn't exactly say they're unplayable, but they are getting to the point where they really need to be refreshed. So it was proposed of having 4 fields at $67,000 and change. And, kind of just some discussion. We need to get better at planning. Everything we build, whether it's a building that needs roofs in 25 to 30 years or 40 years, to a field, everything we build in this district needs maintenance, whether it's turf, et cetera, and, if we plan a annual run rate to bake this stuff in, we don't get as many surprises. So one of the compromises on this, it's like, okay, let's do 2 fields, propose 2 fields for the board here, and then 2 in the future, and then get this baked into a run rate. So we are doing 2 fields now, and we're going to look to do the other 2 fields in the future, just to kind of balance out, from a budget perspective. The high school performing arts construction update, the undergrounds are primarily in, and red iron has arrived. I believe it started going up as well. So the inside floor was poured last week, and interior walls are going in and going vertical. So gaining good momentum. So I thank everybody involved. From a transportation perspective, we did talk about some of the buses. One of the other things, key notes on from the meeting, was the bus patrol system has been fully approved from all the law enforcement agencies in the township, and also the townships that make up our community. So with that being said, they're going to be installed November 18th and are expected to be going live January 6th, which is pretty exciting. So before that all happens, there's going to be a large communication, and I don't know if there'll be a full communication and some sort of, there won't be a town hall, right? There'll just be some sort of mass communication to the district, everyone in the district, about what that means to just making sure you abide by the rules. If someone's got a bus stop stops, you stop. If not, you might get a ticket. So there'll be more on that communication and et cetera. We talked about the high school external speakers and approved that. There's Wilson, the West Middle School interior lighting. There's a Crestron system that's not working properly right now, and it was built with the building. I wouldn't exactly call it antiquated, but we can't get parts for it. And, these things break consistently, and it's starting to get very expensive to maintain. So with that said, Jeff Simcox and the team are looking at, a new system to put in, and there's two options. Right now, I guess it's some mix of fluorescent. We can put in a LED system with dimming or without dimming. They are quite expensive. However, they bring savings to the district. One, if you do no dimming, it costs $688,000. However, it saves the district $74,000 annually for 10 years. And then with dimming, it's $833,000 with an annual savings of $82,000 for 10 years. So more to come on that. There'll be further discussions on how to fund this and whether there'll be dimming or not dimming. So more to come on that. Lower house bathrooms have been discussed. So the bathrooms are the original bathrooms that were installed with the building, and they're extremely outdated. While they are grandfathered, as far as code compliance, they would not meet today's ADA requirements. So we do have money allocated in the budget for bathrooms to be updated, and the quote for the men's room is $82,000. Requires a lot of underground plumbing work, et cetera. So that is going to be proposed or started at some point soon. So, high school gymnasium ductwork we discussed already. District-wide security camera update. We had an update from Dr. Hoffert, and the new camera system has been fully installed. Staff has received training from both the vendor and internally from the Director of Technology, and the camera system has been working great. There's been a couple of recent issues that we're able to look into the camera, not we, but the administration, able to basically get to the root of a problem extremely quickly, as opposed to taking a half a day or so previously. So much more full coverage. There still is some blind spots within the district that are being looked at. So we will probably do a round two of where those gaps are after an assessment. That is my report. The next facilities meeting will be December 9th, around Christmas time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Mr. McCray is not here for the finance report. Mr. McCree, have you had a meeting?
No report since our last meeting.
Thank you very much. Legislative, Mr. Schneider.
I have no report.
Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
I have no report.
Thank you. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman. Mrs. Troutman is pulling double duty tonight.
Well, good evening. I just have a couple of quick announcements of some things coming up. First, Wilson High School Junior JROTC will be hosting the 22nd Annual Berks County Veterans Appreciation Dinner Dance in the Wilson High School Gymnasium on Saturday, November 9th. For those of you who have been at this event, you know it's amazing. The tickets can be purchased in the high school office during the day or at any Berks County Boscov's department store or at the door on the day of the event. And once again, we're looking forward to the opportunity to honor our veterans in this wonderful community event. We also want to publicly thank the Medicine Shop for hosting a voluntary flu shot clinic for our staff, their families, and our community this Friday, October 25th from 4 to 6 p.m. The signups have been promoted on our district social media and in our Bulldog Blitz. And the Medicine Shop continues to be a great community partner that hosts well-run clinics for our staff in the community. And finally, the Wilson School District Latino Parents Association invites the entire community to celebrate the Day of the Dead at their Latino movie night featuring the movie Coco. The event will be held in the Lower House cafeteria beginning at 6 p.m. The movie is free, but there will be concessions available for purchase, with proceeds going to support the Excellent Student Latino Awards Scholarship. Everyone is welcome at this event on November 1st, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
No report. Thank you.
Thank you. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray is not here. Mr. Schneider.
So we met today. We discussed a number of topics, starting with the implementation of an AI policy and working through the creation of that. We talked about the statistics on the number of students that get the Chromebook protection plan. And then from there, we pretty much went to safety concerns, identity stuff, stuff to get into certain programs, how you need what's it stand for, Mr. Finneran? What he said. And how we'll be teaming with the CCIU to work with their new system, proofing us from ransomware, and it will be a cost savings to the district because we won't have to have on-site, hardware. And then lastly, we looked at talking about some vendors that the district is looking into in terms of maintaining and creating a new website. That's my report.
Great, thank you, Mr. Schneider. Student outreach, Ms. Isabel Negrini.
Thank you, President Cucker. I first want to take the time to thank my Vice President, Ani. He did an excellent job of filling in for me last meeting, as I was unfortunately out sick, so I'm just very grateful for him. He did a great job, and I'm very proud of his leadership. The district has had a lot of exciting things going on in terms of the student body. Last week, Wilson's fifth graders had so much fun watching their chicks hatch while learning important lessons about embryology. I remember doing this as a fifth grader, and I can tell you it's incredible, and I think it's so vital for every fifth grader to experience. We've had a lot going on in terms of leadership and academics as well. The High School STAR Club, which is the Stand Against Racism Club, participated in a YVC STAR Ally workshop last week, where students learned about the incredibly important relationship between racism and allyship. And I just continue to applaud these incredible students for, educating themselves and educating the community on such an important issue. They're excellent, and I really look up to them as role models in the community. Additionally, the freshman class had a wonderful time at a new freshman tailgate, which was filled with food, fun, and lots of school spirit. And also last week, senior fall sport athletes had the amazing opportunity to participate in Wilson's annual MVP, which stands for Most Valuable Bulldog. And that's a wonderful way to allow students to choose one incredible teacher or Wilson staff member who's made a tremendous impact on their lives. So that's another incredible thing that took place last week. On October 15th, the school district celebrated White Cane Day, which is dedicated to celebrating those with visual impairments. And many special events were held all throughout the day, throughout the district. And it was, again, incredibly important to raise awareness for this incredibly special day. And last Friday at the football game, the Wilson Mental Health Council had an incredibly successful night at the football game. They themed it Green Out, which was in honor to raise awareness for mental health, which is another incredibly important issue that I really thank them for bringing awareness to. We've seen a lot of success recently with our athletics program. Congratulations to both the boys soccer team and the girls field hockey team for winning the county championship. They played amazing. Additionally, congratulations to Wilson tennis players Jin-Lin Chen and Brooke Mangle. They placed 4th in districts this past weekend, and they got a bid in states, which is the first time in a long time that has happened to the girls tennis team. And the Wilson football team had a very exciting win. It was 56-7 over McCaskey this past Friday. The Bulldogs are now 8-1 as they prepare for the league championship against Manheim Township this Friday. And lastly, I want to applaud the Wilson Marching Band. They had a wonderful performance hosting their home competition, the Sound Panorama. Thank you.
Thank you for your report.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
If I may, since Ms. Negrini wasn't here last week, I would just like to publicly recognize her for being selected 2 weeks ago as the homecoming queen for Wilson. Nothing is more humbling than listening to the resumes of these 17 and 18-year-olds. So to have been selected amongst that group of individuals speaks very highly of what Ms. Negrini has accomplished here at Wilson. The whole homecoming court speaks very highly of Wilson as an educational institute and of those students. So I want to congratulate you as well as the rest of the homecoming court.
Thank you, Mrs. Denny. Ms. Maravich, do you have any?
I have nothing.
Okay. And we do not have public participation on non-agenda items. So looking for any other business from the board? Okay, hearing none. Looking for a motion to adjourn?
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Meeting adjourned.